Okay, how's it going, everybody? We're going to read some more Lenin today. This is chapter 4 of Left Wing Childishness by V.I. Lenin, written in 1918. Not chapter 4, section 4. They're not in chapters, it's just kind of in the sections. Short sections. So, yeah, there's 5 different sections. We're going to read the 4th one. We just read the 3rd one. Section number 4, let's go ahead and get into it. To make things even clearer, let us first of all take the most concrete example of state capitalism. Everybody knows what this is, what this example is. It is Germany. Here we have, quote, the last word in modern large-scale capitalist engineering and planned organization, subordinated to junker bourgeois imperialism. Cross out the words in italics, and in place of the militarist, junker, bourgeois, imperialist state, put also a state, but of a different social type, of a different class content, a Soviet class, or Soviet state. That is, a proletarian state, and you will have the sum of total of the conditions necessary for socialism. Socialism is inconceivable without large-scale capitalist engineering, based on the latest discoveries of modern science. It is inconceivable without planned state organization, which keeps tens of millions of people to the strictest observance of unified standard in production and distribution. We Marxists have always spoken of this. Then it is not worthwhile wasting 2 seconds talking to people who do not understand even this, anarchists and a good half of the left socialist revolutionaries. At the same time, socialism is inconceivable, unless the proletariat is the ruler of the state. This also is ABC. In history, which nobody except Menshevik blockheads of the First Order ever expected to bring about, quote, complete, end quote, socialism, smoothly, gently, easily, and simply, has taken such a peculiar course that it has given birth in 1918 to 2 unconnected halves of socialism existing side by side like 2 future chickens in the single shell of international imperialism. In 1918, Germany and Russia have become the most striking embodiment of the material realization of the economic, the productive, and the socio-economic conditions for socialism, on the one hand, and the political conditions on the other. A successful proletarian revolution in Germany would immediately and very easily smash any shell of imperialism, which unfortunately is made of the best steel, and hence cannot be broken by the efforts of any chicken. It would bring about the victory of world socialism for certain, without any difficulty or with slight difficulty, if, of course, by, quote, difficulty, we mean difficult on a world historical scale, and not in the parochial Philistine sense. While the revolution in Germany is still slow in, quote, coming forth, end quote, our task is to study the state capitalism of the Germans, to spare no effort in copying it, and not shrink from adopting dictatorial methods to hasten the copying of it. Our task is to hasten the copying even more than Peter hastened the copying of Western culture by barbarian Russia. We must not hesitate to use barbarous methods in fighting barbarism. If there are anarchists and left socialist revolutionaries, I recall offhand the speeches of Karelin and Gay at the meeting of the Central Executive Committee, who indulge in Narcissus-like reflections and say that it is unbecoming for us revolutionaries to, quote, take lessons, end quote, from German imperialism. There is only one thing we could say in reply. The revolution that took these people seriously would perish irrevocably and deservedly. At present day, petty bourgeois capitalism prevails in Russia, and it is one and the same road that leads from it to both large-scale capitalism and to socialism, through one and the same intermediate station called, quote, national accounting and control of production and distribution, end quote. Those who fail to understand this are committing an unpardonable mistake in economics. Either they do not know the facts of life, do not see what actually exists, and are unable to look the truth in the face, or they confine themselves to abstractly comparing capitalism with socialism, and fail to study the concrete forms and stages of the transition that is taking place in our country. Let it be said in parentheses that this is the very theoretical mistake which misled the people in the Novaya season in the Verpyad camp. The worst and the mediocre of these, owing to their stupidity and spinelessness, tag along behind the bourgeoisie, of whom they stand in awe. The best of them have failed to understand that it was not without reason that the teachers of socialism spoke of a whole period of transition from capitalism to socialism and emphasized the prolonged birth pangs of the new society. And this new society is again an abstraction which can come into being only by passing through a series of varied, imperfect, concrete attempts to create this or that socialist state. It is because Russia cannot advance from the economic situation now existing here without traversing the ground, which is common to state capitalism and to socialism, national accounting and control, that the attempt to frighten others as well as themselves with, quote, evolution toward state capitalism, end quote. Communist number 1, P8, column 1, is other theoretical nonsense. This is letting one's thoughts wander away from the true road of evolution and failing to understand what the road is. In practice, it is equivalent to pulling us back to small proprietary capitalism. In order to convince the reader that this is not the first time I've given this high appreciation of state capitalism, high as in quote, this quote high appreciation of state capitalism, and that I gave it before the Bolsheviks seized power, I take the liberty of quoting the following passage from my pamphlet, The Impending Catastrophe and How We Combat It, written in September 1917. Quote, try to substitute for the junker capitalist state, for the landowner capitalist state, a revolutionary democratic state, i.e., a state which in a revolutionary way abolishes all privileges and does not fear to introduce the fullest democracy in a revolutionary way. You will find that, given a real revolutionary democratic state, state monopoly capitalism inevitably and unavoidably implies a step, and more than one step, towards socialism. For socialism is merely the next step forward from state capitalist monopoly. State monopoly capitalism is a complete material preparation for socialism. The threshold of socialism, a rung on the ladder of history between which and rung called socialism there are no intermediate rungs. Pages 27 and 28. Please note that this was written when Kerensky was in power, that we are discussing not the dictatorship of the proletariat, not the socialist state, but the, quote, revolutionary democratic state. Is it not clear that the higher we stand on this political ladder, the more completely we incorporate the socialist state in the dictatorship of the proletariat and the Soviets? The less ought we fear, quote, state capitalism, end quote. Is it not clear that from the material, economic, and productive point of view, we are not yet on the threshold of socialism? Is it not clear that we cannot pass through the door of socialism without crossing the threshold we have not yet reached? From whatever side we approach the question, only one conclusion can be drawn. The argument of the, quote, left communists about, quote, state capitalism, which is alleged to be threatening us, is an utter mistake in economics, and is evident proof that they are complete slaves of petty bourgeois ideology. Okay. All right, yeah, so that was section 4, kind of stuff on state capitalism. We're going to read chapter 5 next. So yeah, well, thank y'all for tuning in. Facebook, Twitter, section 5, section 5 next. So yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, Medium, all of these are Marxist Saw. Y'all hit me up there. Y'all have a great day, and Dada Goy.